When camera manufacturers release a new flagship model, one of the first things serious photographers want to know is whether the advertised specifications hold up in real-world shooting conditions. In the case of the Hasselblad X2D II, one of the most ambitious claims concerns its in-body image stabilization system IBIS. Hasselblad states that the new system is capable of delivering up to 10 stops of stabilization. That is an extraordinary claim for any camera, but especially for a medium-format body where the sensor size magnifies even the smallest tremors in handheld shooting. This article recounts a hands-on experiment with the X2D II and its IBIS system, using the XCD to 0.5 55 volts lens. The test conditions were less than ideal. It was late in the evening, very dark, no tripod was used, and the camera was held awkwardly away from the body rather than braced against the chest. In short, this was a torture test designed to push the IBIS to its limits. The results were not only surprising, they were, quite frankly, astonishing. The setting, a Roman Colosseum in Germany. The test took place at Europa Park in Germany, a well-known theme park located not far from the Swiss border and roughly a 2-hour drive from Zurich. Europa Park is sometimes described as the German answer to Disneyland, with rides, themed areas, and architectural replicas from across Europe. Among its attractions is a replica of the Roman Colosseum, complete with a dramatic exterior and a theatrical flair that feels cinematic when lit at night. It was here, standing on a balcony facing the illuminated replica, that the test began. The environment was very dimly lit, challenging conditions for any handheld long exposure. The equipment camera body in use was the Hasselblad X2D II, the latest generation in Hasselblad's medium-format mirrorless line. Mounted on it was the XCD to 0.5 55 volts lens. This is not a wide-angle lens, which would normally be better suited for handheld long exposures. On a medium-format sensor, the 55mm focal length translates roughly to a 43mm equivalent on a full-frame system. That makes it a standard or normal lens, neither telephoto nor wide, and therefore less forgiving of camera shake during long exposures. Given those factors, expectations were moderate. If the IBIS could reliably deliver sharp handheld exposures of 1 second, that would already count as a strong performance. Setting up the test to ensure consistency, the camera was set to ISO 100 for maximum image quality and minimal noise. Aperture f to 0.5. The widest possible on the lens, to maximize light intake. Stabilization mode, normal, activated through the menu. The photographer deliberately avoided using a tripod or bracing the camera against the body. In fact, the camera was held awkwardly in front, with an iPhone mounted between the body and the photographer's chest to record the process. This exaggerated the natural shakiness of handheld shooting, ensuring that any success would be due to the stabilization system alone. The 1-second exposure test began ambitiously with a 1-second exposure shutter speed most photographers would never attempt handheld at 55mm. The first image was a revelation. Despite the shaky shooting position, the resulting file was tack sharp when reviewed on the LCD. Even after zooming in, the detail held up. Subjects who were moving, people walking in the frame naturally showed motion blur, but static architectural features such as the stone walls of the replica Colosseum were crisp and clear. This first attempt alone demonstrated that the IBIS was not only functioning, but doing so with remarkable effectiveness. Pushing further, 2 seconds encouraged, the test moved on to a 2-second exposure. The first attempt failed, with visible blur caused by camera shake. That result was expected. Holding a camera away from the body for 2 full seconds is physically difficult, and any small movement becomes amplified. However, on the second attempt, after carefully finding focus and stabilizing the grip, the image came out sharp again. The details in the masonry, engravings, and architectural lines were preserved, even when cropped in close. To confirm consistency, another 2-second exposure was taken. Once again, the IBIS delivered. The photo was sharp and usable, despite the nearly impossible conditions. The ultimate test, 3 seconds at this point. The experiment had already exceeded expectations. But the real challenge was still ahead, a 3.2-second exposure. Holding the camera steady for this length of time without support is not just technically challenging, it is physically exhausting. Nevertheless, the shot was taken. The result, sharp, Even at over 3 seconds, the IBIS system compensated so effectively for hand tremors that the architectural features remained crisp. The lights in the frame were overexposed due to the long exposure time, but this was a matter of exposure settings, not sharpness. The photo was usable, detailed, and shockingly stable. Reviewing the files in Lightroom. Back in Lightroom, the 5 test images were examined in detail at 100% magnification, with no post-processing applied. 1 second at f2.5, ISO 100, perfectly sharp. No complaints. 2. First 2-second attempt, blurry due to excessive shake. 3. Second 2-second attempt sharp, with clear detail. 4. Third 2-second attempt, also sharp, confirming repeatability. 5. 3-second attempt 3. To south, shockingly sharp. The boundaries of the frame held up as well as the center, with no signs of edge softness caused by ABIS compensation. After minor editing to improve shadow detail, straighten lines, and balance highlights, the 3-second exposure produced an image suitable for serious use. Doing the math, how many stops of stabilization? Photographers often use the reciprocal rule to determine the slowest handheld shutter speed that can reliably avoid blur. The rule states that the safe shutter speed should be no slower than the reciprocal of the focal length, adjusted for crop factor. With a 55mm lens on medium format, the safe handheld shutter speed would be approximately **1/100". Counting stops from 1/100 down to 3.2 seconds, 1/100 gives 1/50th, 1 stop 1/50th gives 1/25th, 2 stops 1/25th gives 1/13th, 3 stops 1/13th gives 1/6th, 4 stops 1/6 gives 1/3, 5 stops 1/3 gives 0.66 stops 0.6 gives 1. To 7 stops 1.2 gives 2.4, 8 stops 2.4 gives 3.29 stops. That means the IBIS provided a stabilization benefit of at least 8 to 9 stops. Considering the awkward shooting position and the absence of any bracing, it is reasonable to conclude that in more practical conditions using a wide-angle lens, with the camera pressed against the body, the system could indeed approach Hasselblad's advertised 10-stop claim. Why this matters for many photographers: the ability to shoot long exposures without a tripod is not just a novelty, it changes the way they work. Tripods are often inconvenient to carry, especially when traveling or working in crowded environments where setup space is limited. With stabilization this strong, the X2D II allows for night photography without a tripod, capturing scenes at low ISO for maximum dynamic range and minimal noise. Creative long exposures, motion blur of people, water, or lights, while keeping architectural details sharp. Improved flexibility, the freedom to shoot spontaneously, even when conditions are dim. The fact that these results were achieved with a standard focal length lens makes them even more impressive. With a wide-angle lens, where small shakes are less noticeable, handheld exposures of 4, 5, or even 6 seconds may be realistic. Limitations observed: of course, there are boundaries. Moving subjects will always blur at multi-second exposures, no matter how effective the stabilization. In the test images, people in the frame showed visible motion trails, which is to be expected. Additionally, the longer the exposure, the greater the chance that environmental factors, wind, arm fatigue, or accidental shifts will ruin a shot. Consistency improves with practice, but there will always be a limit to what is practical. Nevertheless, the fact that sharp images were captured at 3.2 seconds handheld with a 55mm lens speaks volumes about the IBIS system's reliability. Final thoughts: this test demonstrated that Hasselblad's claims about the X2Di's IBIS system are not marketing exaggerations. In real-world conditions late at night, handheld, with a normal lens, and without support, the camera produced sharp exposures up to 3.2 seconds. That represents an 8 to 9 stop advantage over the reciprocal rule, approaching the advertised 10 stops. More importantly, the results open creative possibilities. Photographers can travel lighter, shoot more flexibly, and capture images previously thought impossible without a tripod. The Hasselblad X2D II is more than just a high-resolution medium-format camera with beautiful color science. It is also, thanks to its IBIS, a tool that expands the definition of what handheld photography can achieve. For anyone wondering whether the stabilization system lives up to its promise, this experiment provides a clear answer: yes, and then some.